Hello, and welcome to my environmental issue and book review project. The book that I read, called Breathe by Sarah Crossan, centers around the idea of running out of renewable oxygen in the atmosphere. The book states that all trees have been eradicated from Earth, and the atmosphere is now only 6% oxygen, when it was around 20%. Overall, this book was a very average YA novel. The compelling setting kept me interested, however. The book is written from three POVs, Bee and Quinn, who discover the corporate corruption behind the pod they live in, and Alina, a rebel who is trying to grow trees outside the pod. Now, I found Bee and Quinn to be quite distinct, but Alina's voice was stifled by her lack of characterization. I quite enjoyed every scene with Maud Blue, a snappy old lady they encounter on their journey. I found the character's disdain for her quite entertaining. The environmental issue in Breathe was the lack of O2. The characters have to wear oxygen tanks to survive outside the pod. So, my question is, can this feasibly occur in the near future? The answer to this involves some basic math. The number of trees on Earth is 3.04 trillion, so our tipping point to where the apocalypse could occur is this number. One tree makes enough O2 for 2 people. There's 7.8 billion people on Earth, but for allowance we will use 9 billion. This means we only need 4.5 billion trees to sustain the human population's breath consumption. Even with more allowance of O2 and extra trees for other purposes, it requires a fraction of the trees we currently have available. However, it's also important to note that around 15.3 billion trees are cut down each year. This makes the situation a whole lot more plausible. I know the Paris Agreement is a global act to reduce the average temperature increase to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. I wonder about the role that Canada's government is playing in this. My prediction is that our government may be focused on conservation rather than restriction. For example, the annual AAC may be lowered in order to ensure more O2 production, or certain technology may be being developed to increase farming efficiency. I found that they're researching green energy production and use, as well as building on policies already implemented such as logging regulations. Humans are the most widespread consumers of O2. We also chop down trees for uses like infrastructure, paper, fuel, and so on. This means that we have drastically reduced the amount of organisms that process the CO2 we breathe out. My question is exactly how much the logging industry impacts our oxygen production. 15.3 billion trees are cut down every year. On average, 260 pounds of oxygen are produced by one tree per year. This means that almost 4 trillion pounds of oxygen are lost each year, mostly due to the logging industry. Many organizations are dedicated to combating harmful logging practices and, by extension, preserving O2. In my research, I wanted to know if any local logging companies are practicing sustainability. I looked at the Gorman Brothers, a group of companies that owns the mill in West Bank. I found they replaced harvested stands with a diverse selection of trees based on the original stand, which can help restore the ecosystem. They monitor these areas for years after to ensure recovery, complying with sustainment policies. Sadly, I could only find that much on them as their main website was down. For this final section, I decided to track oxygen in our atmosphere over time. It is estimated that life forms called cyanobacteria started photosynthesizing, therefore releasing oxygen, around 2.7 to 3 billion years ago. Millions of years later, around 2.3 billion years ago, oxygen started to become a staple element of the Earth's atmosphere. 450 million years ago, life had successfully evolved to live on land, and the atmosphere stayed roughly the same, being 20% O2. Thank you for listening to my presentation about the environmental issues surrounding Breathe. I hope this has been informative. The next scene is a blooper for added entertainment. Production or certain technology may be being